characteristics of an investigator. We need to know that what are the characteristics, what are the attributes of good researchers and, active investigators or effective researchers, right? So the characteristics of investigator or good researcher are basically these ones. Like number one is the full understanding of functions and activities. A researcher is, having an insight, and he is critically thinking about phenomena, particularly which are understudy, right? So the understudy context or the understudy phenomena is fully understood by an investigator, by a researcher. And he and she also knows the functions and the activities which are the part of the study, right? That what functions are done at what stage and by which, techniques, right? And similarly, what activities are to be carried out in order to make the study reliable and valid, right? So there is full understanding on the part of the researcher about the functions and the activities of the, research process, right? Then another attribute of an investigator is reflective thinking. Reflective thinking is that the creative or the critical thinking is used because the person is able to think deeply, right? And he has the ability to reflect on things, right? Reflect on various experiences, reflect on various, issues faced by him or by some other people who are giving him the, the task to complete a research, right? So he is very reflective, right? He or she is very reflective, and that reflective thinking is the part of his personality. And a researcher is very sensitive towards the job. And since he's very sensitive, he could think deeply. He could go and dig deeply about a particular phenomena. And that is when a very sensitivity is involved and about the job, and that job is fully understood, and he and she is in a position to reflect deeply. Then an investigator is creative and imaginative. An investigator would not go for something which is, followed by ordinary people. He would definitely think about imaginative and creative possibilities. Maybe something does not exist, but the investigator who is, a good researcher, he or she would definitely think about that possibility, that is also possible. So a very creative mind is required for research, and a very imaginative mind is required, because imaginative people and creative people, they can think about things which do not exist, right? And they are not the normal routines, right? So they can just think out of the box, and this out of the box thinking make researchers creative and critical in nature, right? So that's a very good attribute of researchers. And then the knowledge of action research is also a very good plus point for investigator, right? Action research. Like, how would you solve a problem when it is faced by a practitioner, right? What are the steps involved in action research? How would you reflect? How would you collect data? How would you relate it with your context? And what would you deduce from those steps, right? So these are the points which are the part of the, the knowledge related to action research. And that is the knowledge which is known to, the effective investigator, right? And effective investigator is insightful, right? They are, fully understanding and they have the ability to reflect and think about the situation. So this insightfulness is another attribute of an effective investigator. Effective investigator is always, having scientific attitude towards studying, right? And this scientific attitude is that they are not going for non-scientific way of solutions. They are always believing in the scientific ways of solutions, right? And the scientific ways are that they follow appropriate observation, and then they would go for authentic hypotheses, and then on the basis of hypotheses, they would collect data, right? And then on the basis of the analysis of data, the interpretation of data, they would conclude, right? So that is something which makes them scientific attitude holders, right? So they have scientific attitude, and they observe problems in such an active or effective ways that they would definitely do their research very effectively. And then they have objectivity in thinking. They may not be doing things as per their wishes. They may be doing things as per the objectivity required, right? Just by detaching their own emotions, right? They may not be putting up their own emotions into their studies, right? So they have the ability to think objectively. And this objective thinking is very important. And then effective investigators are also democratic in behavior because they take constructive criticism in a very positive manner, right? And they listen to others, and they can justify on the basis of their scientific thinking, right? So these are the points related to effective investigator. And there are some other points, like an effective investigator would be very patient, right? They would be doing research very, very patiently. They are not in a hurry, right? Because they want to go and dig deeply. They want to complete steps, or they may be repeating some steps because the points or the experience may not be completed easily. So they may be repeating it in order to make it more reliable, in order to make it more valid, right? So that's the part of the job, and they are not in a hurry, and they are patient people, right? And then they are measuring knowledge with tools which are known to them. So they know how to devise and how to use tools for measuring appropriately, right? So that is another, the knowledge of measuring tools is another, quality of effective investigators. Effective investigators are open-minded. They are open to feedback. They are open to, some constructive criticism, and they are open to the points by reviewers or by examiners or by their supervisors. So they are open-minded people, and they would definitely excel in their job just on the basis of their open-mindedness, right? So they are excellent professionals, and they would definitely want to excel in their job, in their research areas. And not the last point, but the least, that they must also be frugal people, right? They know how to use minimum money and maximum output, right? So they may not be, spending money lavishly. They may be using just for the sake of, their appropriate researchers and their, very authentic researchers. So they are also frugal people. These are some of the, attributes, some of the characteristics which are important for effective investigators.